welcome to the Group X podcast. Not for the first time, but the second time. It is so good to see you again.
Thanks, Tony. It is good to be back, and I'm pleased I've got a voice to talk to you with as well. So always a pleasure seeing you and listening to your amazing voice.
Oh, stop it. Now you're making me blush. Is that possible, people? Is that possible? Hey, it was to kick it off right from the word go, obviously, but I want you to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of a background about you so those that haven't met you before get to know who you are. So who are you?
I'm Adam Epskamp, and I'm a fitness enthusiast. I love all things movement. I'm a chiropractor as well. I have been in the group exercise game for 16 years officially. In the professional capacity, but have been participating for 20 years. So there's a lot of exercise under this belt. I've got a long history with activity before that, from surfing to always being on a push bike, which is was so natural for me to move into creating my own cycle program, which is Ride Revolution, of course, which we'll talk about today. But that's the big ticket items. I guess I was very, from an early age, I was very academic. And I was going to be the first man on Mars. Was when I got to the end of high school, first man on Mars.
Excellent.
I'd always wanted to be an architect, and so I actually got accepted into architecture, but I'm a West Aussie, so we call it levers. I think you guys call it schoolies on the East Coast. I had an under the influence epiphany and thought, first man on Mars. Has got to be a mechanical engineer. So went and did mechanical engineering for a year. Excuse me. Well, there's that voice already. So did that for a year. I was very good at it, and then decided that it wasn't for me, and moved into audio engineering soon after that. But that was a time in my life where I wasn't terribly health orientated. Still like moving, still like surfing, but I was living and essentially fueling out of my car at that age. I was probably 19, 20 years of age. And,
they're good days.
They were like, in retrospect, it seemed like fun at the time, but I don't know. Like, I think I was fairly like average all the time, but you don't know. You don't know until you feel amazing. So, so that was the time in my life where I had to shift back to making good decisions. I got to 115 kilos fat boy, and that started to affect my surfing and that sort of thing. So that was a point in my life where I had to make some changes, and I decided to stay in the health and fitness game, and that meant me... and that was when I stepped into the gym for the first time. So I was surfing one day, too unfit to actually complete the surf, and decided then and then that I had to ask for help. Drove to the gym, which was Craigie Leisure Centre. I know you've had things to do with Craigie Leisure Centre in West Australia.
Yeah.
Their cycle studio is going through a few iterations. It's pretty amazing space by the looks of it nowadays. But went there and asked for help, and that's where my fitness and exercise journey really sort of took off, and haven't really looked back since. So that was when was that? Probably 2001, 2002, where I really started to get into exercise. For me, as a young male at that point, there was no group exercise initially, because of course, like, you had to lift heavy stuff in the gym, and
of course
the group exercise room was for women, and that was
leotards and
that's right. Which soon occurred to me that that's where all the women were, and the leotards. So. It was only a natural progression to end up in those studios, but so that was kind of the catalyst, was my poor health into good health through exercise and fitness.
Brilliant. I love that. A surfing episode of, can we say not being able to get on the board properly would have made you realise that, hang on a second, I'm a fat boy and I need to do something here.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I paddled out. It was an epic day in the southwest of WA at a beach called Yelling Up. And I mean, I got on the board to paddle out, but I was too cactus by the time I paddled out to actually catch anything. So contemplated life for about 15 minutes and then decided it was time to ask for help. Yeah.
Realisation. Good point, though. A good turning point, or something you'll always remember.
Always, yeah.
Yeah. So how does that lead you into where you are today and your journey on from walking in from the surf and heading to Craigie? How did you then become what you are today?
So with that journey, I was super excited about the changes I experienced in a small period of time. So across 6 months, I'd got my confidence back and was back surfing quite consistently and all that sort of stuff. I wasn't shredded by any stretch of the imagination. I was just more competent.
Yep.
But I thought, instead of being a mechanical engineer or auto engineer, like I needed to do something that was in the service of people. And so I considered everything from PT to sports science to human movement to kinesiology to physiotherapy. And my chiro at the time I was talking to about it, and he said, why don't you go and be a chiropractor? You love what I do. You've seen me for almost 10 years. And I was like, well, I'm not smart enough to be a doctor. So he said, well, you're smart enough to be an engineer. You're smart enough to be a doctor. So off I went to chiropractic. And
so the first man on Mars was going to be a chiropractor.
Well, yeah, and still could be. And I mean, that option's still available, isn't it?
Yep.
So I mean, that was the change. And when I got to university, there was a classmate of mine was being paid to exercise, and excuse me, everyone. And that was Ian Hennessy. I was studying with. He's a chiropractor as well.
Top bloke.
And he was getting paid to teach a cycle class, an indoor cycle experience known as Les Mills RPM. I fell in love with that. I was riding my flat bar hybrid from, where was I at the time? I think I was Mount Lawley. So it was about 30 kilometres from Mount Lawley to Murdoch University. And so I would go do the class at Lord's and then jump on my flat bar and ride to university and meet Ian at the uni because he would do a double on a Tuesday morning. So, so that was just a lot of cycling in my early days of university, and the fact that he was getting paid to one, play loud music, and all of a sudden he had the room full of women in lycra in front of him. So I was like, wow, that's win-win.
Hello.
Really. But I do. He showed me. So that was RPM 86 was not 86 was 36.
Yep.
Painkiller, straight lines.
Yep.
Move it.
Good release.
Great release.
Yep.
What else was on that one? I play it all the time too. Spin Me Round. I think that was.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolute cracking release. So that's the first RPM I remember. Excuse me. And then I trained on 37.
Yep.
In Bibra Lake was Zest Health Clubs back then. So
wow, it's going back.
Way back. Yeah. So that was good. Now I was the least likely person to be on a microphone, so I still am. I'm an introvert. I recharge by hiding away and being by myself. But I was given a microphone and this guy came out. So
awesome.
The rest is history. Which was surprising to everyone in my network because they're like, well, why would you do that? You don't like public speaking at all. But I don't know. It was like, I think the fear around public speaking is speaking on a topic that you're not confident in.
Yes. Yep.
So
I totally agree with you on that. It's even today. Yeah, yes, I've got a podcast. Yes, I'm boardroom meetings and all that kind of stuff. But you put me in somewhere in a situation where it's a topic I'm not 100% confident on. Holy crap! I shut down.
yeah,
Yeah.
we all do.
Yeah. Give me something that I can talk about for hours and hours and hours. Hello, I started the podcast.
Yeah, that's it.
Close to Claudia, close to 80 episodes later. Yeah, so I hear you. I hear you with that.
Yeah. So yeah, give me a class with music. One, always been very musically orientated. Parents, I was even testing my Cairo today. I put David Bowie on today and asked him if he knew any of that. Just no idea, right? And I was just like, wow, like there's a whole generation out there who doesn't know who Bowie is, which is mind blow. But like, I mean, it's important for me, right? Like that's important for me. It's not important for everyone, but music's a big part of that. And so yeah, give me a stage, a microphone, and music, and I'm pretty good to go.
Yep.
So that was how I got into the group exercise space, and that paid for me to get through university. So chiropractic being a 5-year degree at uni, and then I went over to Canada, and I wanted to teach RPM over there, but that was kind of different because Good Life Health Clubs in Canada have the exclusive rights to all Les Mills programs.
Yep.
So I had to create my own program for some clubs, and then if I was able to teach at a Good Life Health Club, then I did. And but I had to force my way into the Good Life over there. And so, I mean, there's 2 cool stories out of that. I guess I walked into the Good Life in Canada, and it just happened to be, and g'day Carol Reba / Dobson if you're listening to the GX podcast. I walked into one of her clubs. She's the master trainer for RPM in Canada, has been for over a decade, and but I walked into one of her clubs, and I said to the lady on the counter at the time, and I said, I know what's wrong with your timetable. She says, oh, what? I said, I'm not on it. And so they frothed it. They thought that was the craziest thing anyone's ever said to them. And so that got me the intro to Carol, and she said, you have to come and do an audition. And
Fantastic.
I was like, of course I'm going to do an audition.
Yep.
And so, I rocked up to one of her clubs, and she said, give me 3 tracks. Be awesome if they were together, so you can just do 3 in a row, smash it out. And and I'm pretty sure I did, knock on wood, Piranha and Silence.
Brilliant. Brilliant 3.
And she said, Piranha wasn't very well received here. And I was just like, yeah, but you haven't seen me do it. And so she even mentioned at the start of the class, she said, oh, Adam's going to do his version of Piranha. And I could see everyone kind of shift and be like, oh, that song. But by the time I'd finished teaching it, and like I had the whole theme like in the Amazon and trying to get across the river and not letting the piranha eat your calves and all that sort of stuff. And they're jumping out and chewing on whoever's got the healthiest calves in the room. By the time I had got through that, they were like, we have not seen anything like that. And Carol gave me a whole bunch of classes right off the bat. So
love it. Yeah, it's just on that. It comes down to how it's delivered.
How it's delivered, which
100%.
is, I'll put a few people under the ringer now. If you're not finding those opportunities in whatever program you're teaching now, you're missing it.
Yeah,
you're missing it.
Yeah,
right. So there's always an opportunity based on those tracks. I've got a knack for taking the tracks that everyone doesn't like and turning them into something that they can't forget. So. Yeah.
And I set a challenge in one of the episodes earlier on with, I think it was Nathan White. I told him to go and do the worst of. Yeah, go and pull out the tracks that you hate. Go and learn them again. Go and do it and nail them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't. Oh shit. That's on the playlist. I'm never playing that one again. No, you might not have played it for 6 months. Do yourself a favor. Go and grab it. Go and do it. It changes you as an instructor, but also your participants that got a really bad experience the first time, like what you just did there with Piranha. They've turned around and probably some of them have now gone, that was freaking amazing. Hell yeah, let's do that one again.
Yeah.
Something different.
Yeah.
Don't do the same shit time in, time out. People get bored.
And they forget that it was the Piranha track anyway. They were like, "Oh, can you do the Amazon one again?" And it's like, well, totally, you know. So, because you change the experience for them around that track, you know.
Yeah.
And I still have instructors come up to me now, and you know, Adagio for strings is probably massive for most cycle instructors. But like when I was at the filming for 86 in Sydney, I had a couple of instructors come up to me who I hadn't seen for years, and they were participants back in Perth, and two of them were like, I went on to become an RPM instructor because of the way you taught Adagio.
Yep.
And then they were like, and the choreography you did is nothing like the way it is in the notes.
Shh.
Trade secret. Trade secret.
Oh, that's too funny. I love that.
And I guess the other thing there on my experience in Canada was because I worked at Gold's Gym over there, Steve Nash Fitness, a place called Heavens, which...
Sounds like a nightclub.
It sounds like a nightclub, and I'll give you a little background on that. So I had to audition for that place as well. This is in Calgary, and so I did my own program called Revolution back then. So it was a 50-minute, two-peak cycle journey. And so I'd had a whole bunch of music I put together for that, so I could teach at other clubs, not just exclusive to Good Life in Canada. Anyway, so I was at this gym called Heavens, and the audition, the team there was like, wow, that was amazing. It reminds me so much of an instructor we used to have here. And I was like, I wonder who that is. And they said, Dan McDonough, right? So I was like, oh, that guy, yeah. Well, I said, well, that guy, he was one of my earliest inspirations from the early RPM stuff. I just thought he was the best. So to be compared to Dan McDonough was pretty amazing. And not only that, is to end up in a club that he was at in Calgary in Canada was pretty freaking cool.
This is the Group X podcast.
So how does that get you to where you are now, man? How did that, the double R that's there on your shirt, for those of you just listening, Adam's wearing a blue shirt. It's got Ride Revolution logo. How did Ride Revolution come to be?
So, I moved back from Canada in 2011 and got back on the Les Mills train, teaching at in WA, sort of Lord's Fitness Club, Fitness First, the occasional Good Life over there. Back then, Good Life couldn't rub 5 cents together, so
Yep.
It wasn't a sought after location to teach out of. But great Craigie Leisure Centre I was at very regularly. But Fitness First approached me because there was another program going around called Ride, and that came out because of the musical license changes that happened. That was end of 2009 from memory.
Yep.
So I managed to skip, the 12 months of everyone teaching the same two releases. By moving to Canada, it was just a small cost to get that done. So I came back, and Fitness First approached me. They were like, we need a strong cycle instructor to take on this program and lead it. And I was drinking the Les Mills Kool-Aid back then. And I didn't want to cheat on Les Mills and all that sort of stuff. But a good friend, he was super interested in it. And Mike Batskoz, if you're listening over there in WA, I'm sure he's still teaching. He said to me, it's just group exercise, man. It's, it doesn't really matter what program it is. Yeah, there's a big catalog behind Les Mills stuff, but, Ride's a good opportunity, and, it'd be cool to have you on board. So I was a late enrollment, and I actually had to email can't remember who it was at the time. It was probably Mel, given that we know how Maddie is with correspondence. But, so I emailed and said, so that's Maddie Clark and Mel was the creators of Ride. I said, hey, I've got a full book of patients on the Saturday morning. I said, I'll come and do the course as long as I can start at midday. And they were happy to oblige, which was pretty rich, considering I wouldn't let anyone do that. But so I came in at lunchtime for the 2-day training, and I got there and it was lunchtime and they're about to go into their first presentations. And Mel gave me, she said, oh, you've got the interval track. I think it was the first interval track, must have been. Excuse me. Which was an AC/DC track. Oh, I'm reaching. Anyway, they gave it to me and they said, you've got about 15 minutes before we go on and present. And I said, I'll be fine with that. That's cool. Anyway, so I sit down, listen to it, like, oh yeah, I've pretty much got that. That's sweet. And then Mel comes over and says, hey, I made a mistake. You're actually on the speed track, which is the track after. And it's like, oh no, that's cool. And so she said, like, you're literally only going to have a chance to listen to it once. So you don't have to present this round. And I said, no, I'll be sweet. And so I listened to it once, and then there were so many people on that module that we had to go through the release twice anyway. And I said, I'll just go in the second half, so at least I'll get to ride it once.
Yep.
Shoot for Thrills was the AC/DC track. And then, so yeah, got to ride it once, and then I kind of was like, all right, there's 5 different sections in it, and I'd not long been back from Canada, and so I created this journey from Vancouver to Whistler, going through Squamish and, past Whistler and into Blackcomb and stopping at Tim Hortons on the way up there and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So that was the plan, and I came out and I executed it perfectly, and it pretty much just left everyone's jaw on the floor, how competent and confident that I presented that. And Maddie and Mel pretty much afterwards said, well, we need a trainer presenter in West Australia, and we think you're that guy. So so that's how I got involved with the Ride.
Yep. Pardon me.
And I worked with those guys for a couple of years before that kind of wound its way to a finish.
Yep.
And that always, I revisited that program on and off across the next few years just because people loved the way I presented it, and the intensity in that program was well received. Everyone loved it. And so it was a shame that it didn't really kick on much further than that, but that's the way it rolled. And I got a run at presenting Body Pump for Les Mills Australia Pacific, so I jumped on that and was shortly thereafter part of the Sprint and RPM trainer presenter team as well. Yep. So that filled in sort of the years between 2014 to end of last year, so 2022. So about 7 or 8 years with LMAP presenting as well. So yeah, I just had this wealth of knowledge and experience from training up other instructors and that sort of thing across the last best part of a decade. And then, I mean, what really smacked us all in the face at, 2020 was when COVID did its lockdown thing.
Whichever thing.
And this is a pretty long-winded story to get to how I've got two R's on my shirt.
Oh, good.
But at the end of the day, everyone had to pivot. That was the word of the year, right? Pivot in 2020. And everyone was starting to teach fitness off their phone from home.
Some of the best classes I think the industry's ever seen. The best,
and I'm sure they're still out there and readily available if you're going into those archives.
Yeah.
But having observed some of them, and no discredit to people that were doing it, because we had to do a U-turn on a dime. So
100%. 100.
At least people were staying engaged and active and that sort of thing. But
as an industry, we did the best with what we could, with what we knew at that stage.
But I was just like, from an end user experience, I was like, this playing music on a boombox in the garage and like yelling at the phone, and it was just.
Yep.
It was really uncomfortable for me. So I was like, hey, I've got an audio engineering background, and I had access to some PPCA free music. So I knew that like auditing bodies like Facebook and all that sort of stuff wouldn't recognize the cover music online. So I used the Ride music to start teaching online cycle classes. And I had the microphone on, I had it going through a mixing desk, had it all balanced into the iPhone, and started broadcasting that way to create a better quality experience for users at home online.
Yep.
So that's how the online component came to be. I also saw that as an opportunity. I was like, oh, well, I mean, there's a whole bunch of new music. Like Rides probably finished up around 2012 from memory, maybe 2013. So there was 8 years of great music around that probably needed to be turned into cycle music, which I'm sure heaps of people have done, but I was ready to do it myself and exercise my creative juices. Like I said, I've got a real passion around music and that, so I wanted to put together my own workouts, and the music that we had available to us at Les Mills wasn't licensed for that usage online. Like I went into like the copyright stuff pretty hard and heavy, so I knew that I wasn't going to have it kicked back on me at some stage. And I mean, there's for personal use, there's for club use, there's for video use, there's for on-demand use, there's for online use. So there's so many different copyrights that you have to be wary of, and so that's why using things like Les Mills or even original music online is too hard to do now, because all the AI is too clever, so freaking clever, sniffing it out and making sure everyone's doing the right thing. But so I saw an opportunity. I was like, well, what if I create my own music? And as much as I love the journey style cycle experience, the 45 RPM, the 50 minutes ride, I love that. That's probably that's my home, and I could do that at the drop of a hat. And not that I can't do high intensity training, which is what Ride Revolution, the HIT series, has become. But it was easy, and I'll go into the science a little bit on the music as well, around why using unfamiliar music in HIT is of no disadvantage compared to a journey style experience.
Yep.
But I was like, the only way I can get around the music stuff was to make my own music, and if I made it hard and fast, then people weren't going to really feel like they were at a disadvantage listening to unfamiliar music.
Yeah. Yep.
So just to extrapolate on that, is that we know that, yes, if the tempo is upbeat and if the music is energetic, then in high intensity training, the internal cues, right, the fact that you're working hard enough, so from sort of north of 80% VO2 max, that those internal cues should be too loud for you to actually recognize the characteristics of music that you want in familiar music.
Yep.
Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah. Well,
Or,
to me.
or let's flip it the other way. So if you're working at sort of that sub-threshold level, very cardio peak based stuff, which is what your RPM is, or a 50-minute cycle journey. The external cues now play a significant role in keeping you moving with the rhythm, right? So you're not screaming so loud inside that you can actually hear what's coming from outside.
Yep.
So that's why familiar music is super important for that style of training. So for me, I was like, well, if I have to create familiar music, one, that becomes expensive because you have to ask the artist, and then you have to sort of determine how many times you're going to play it, and then how many times the people you sell it to are going to play it, and then how many people are going to buy it.
Yep.
You have to be very specific about the numbers. And it all got too complicated. So I was like, as much as I'd love to do that, and I do have 6 volumes of music set aside for stuff I've already done for the 50-minute version of Ride Rev. I call it the tour series. It's sitting in the archives at the moment.
Yep.
But to get the tick of approval from that, it's too expensive. It's cost prohibitive. So I shifted to the 30-minute format, high intensity training, just made some absolutely banging music that doesn't have to be familiar. And then that way you can train hard and fast and get the results you want in a short period of time.
Yeah.
So that's how I got to Ride Revolution. So a combination of my tip of the cap to Maddie and Mel from the Ride program and my program that I created in Canada called Revolution, put them together, and we've got Ride Revolution.
Well done. Nice to hear. Nice to hear where it came from and that backstory on how you've got to where you are. So you've touched on it there briefly and sort of said it's their hit series. So Ride Revolution is hit on a bike. So not high intensity interval training, but just high intensity training. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. Why was it just that you wanted something different over the journey stuff? Why did you feel that was where you really wanted to push?
I just thought that there seems to be a culture of poor. Now, let me extrapolate on that. So everyone's time poor.
Yep.
So it needed to be 30 minutes, right? And that was kind of the demand. It's the demand of the day. You can squeeze it in on your schedule, left, right, and center. It's convenient for people. So I was like, a 30-minute session would be great. And I just kept it as high-intensity training because we want bang for buck. Now, I could call it high-intensity interval training, but that would mean I would have to create an interval-based program, right?
Yep.
So interval allows me to... dropping the interval allows me to create more flexibility in the program. Right? Like,
Sure.
As far as high intensity goes, I could pretty much have everyone riding just sub threshold for half an hour, and that's still technically high intensity training, you know.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I haven't done that. Doesn't mean I won't, but like I just can't see that being terribly exciting. But it's still high intensity training. So that's why I've deliberately dropped the interval so I can play around with it. The reality is I do play with longer work to rest ratios. Some of them up to, 40-second recovery, 4-minute effort. So, I don't know, do the maths on that. That's probably like 10-to-1 work to rest ratio. So, your standard Tabata style stuff is a 2-to-1 work to rest ratio. That was the classic. Tabata being kind of the measuring stick of interval training.
Yep.
And interval training should be short, sharp, fast. I mean, there's a lot of discussion around the fact that half an hour is just intensity training. It's like, man, it's not even potentially high, because high intensity training should be balls to the wall.
Yep.
Hold your head in your hands once you finish the 4-minute Tabata style training, right? So so I could argue for it both ways, but at the end of the day, if you're getting a whole bunch of work done in half an hour, that's high intensity training.
Yep.
So that's how I've done it, and that's why I've done it. Is there another 30-minute high-intensity training program on a bike out there? Absolutely, yes. And I was a master trainer and presenter for that program as well. Was heavily involved with the onboarding of that into Australia with crew like Lee Smith and Ian Hennessy as well. And so I've got a lot of insight, and I contributed a lot to it as well. And but I've got a whole bunch of ideas that have never been explored. So this is my opportunity to do that. And I guess one of the limiting factors to the other program is that there's a lack of mix and matching that program offers, and people love it, right? people love the less predictable nature of what I've been creating because I've got it in 14-minute blocks, so you can mix and match 2 different 14-minute blocks. So
Cool.
across the 13 volumes, you know, you got 13 squared, that's 169 different combinations. We know there's more than that because there's more than just 13 14-minute halves, but
Yep.
for simple maths, there's a lot of training sessions available to those out there that want to mix and match. It's all balanced really well. It's a blend of speed, power, and strength, which sounds very familiar to everyone as well, but I like the gray zones. So, you know, the space between speed and power and the space between power and strength and the space beyond strength.
Yep.
More sort of peak power output, that sort of thing. So I've got a variable I call punctuated training. So essentially it's as heavy as you can, hard and as fast as you can, sometimes for 4 counts, sometimes for 8 counts, sometimes up to 16 counts, but it's a maximum effort and often repeated. So it's just something that'll kick you in the pants real hard and definitely get you that high intensity training that we're looking for.
This is the Group X podcast.
Why did you design Ride Revolution?
Yeah, great question, TZ. My love for music was something it's always innately been there, and I always wanted to have a very successful band and sell albums all over the world and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
For those wondering, the band name would have been Tortured Fate.
Where did that come from?
That was me sitting in the back of a classroom. We must have been year 10. Just had to. I'm heavy metal. I mean, look at me. I look like friggin' Dimebag Darrell. But yeah. So I mean, I've always wanted to create music. Now, as a heavy metal guy, we just released because I call them volumes, right? So hit volume 13 is what we've called the Black Volume, a tip of the cap to Metallica's The Black Album. So it's an all rock, high energy, high intensity training session. So
Okay.
and I mean that follows the point of what I was just saying is it doesn't necessarily have to be familiar music or even music that is your chosen what's the word I'm looking for? Your probably preferred style of music. No, there's another
Genre.
word. Genre. That's the word we're looking for. Because most people are like, yeah, but I don't like hard music or heavy music. And once people get into the training, they're like, actually, the music was amazing for it. You know, like the beat was driving, the energy was up. And so I was like, yeah, like what we're picking up to drive the training is the big energy, the fast tempo, and it's just got to drive the rhythms of the body from heart rate to breathing to leg rate, all that sort of stuff. So to answer your question again, yeah, so there's definitely a creative side. There's just a whole bunch of ideas I've had when it comes to high intensity training on a bike that had not been utilized, and it was an itch. It was an itch that I wanted to scratch, and I missed creating experiences that I was doing in Canada in 2010. So it was something I've always wanted to do, and I just wanted to do it differently.
Yep.
Create, you know, like, and I'm going to say right off the bat, like, I'm not here to replace other programs. I'm here to make your very expensive cycle studio more available.
Yep.
Right? I can coexist as Ride Revolution with every other program on their timetable.
100%. 100%.
And I can train up your instructors to be a beacon of light in your club as well, to bring that space alive, right? So that's the opportunity I want to tap into.
Yep.
I've heard you say previously that one of your clubs said they're just going to sell off all the cycle equipment because the cycle programs, they're dead and dying. We know that's garbage, and we know that if the instructors are teaching from a place of passion. They're teaching from heart, right? Not head, and not because they're getting their $37 for the half hour or whatever it is.
Don't go there.
Got to poke the bear a little bit.
That's an entire podcast series that's coming up in 2027.
Well, there you go. Yeah. I'll be back for that with my grey beard. And but that space is just like, it's an amazing space, underutilized in my opinion. I'm sure anyone who sits on a stationary bike and tries to encourage a whole bunch of people to move understands that as well. So I wanted just to create more accessibility. And the other one that I was very fortunate to travel around to a lot of regional places in Australia, thanks to my opportunity with Les Mills Australia Pacific. But regional areas don't have access to these programs, right? The licensing is cost prohibitive for small clubs. So I wanted to come up with a solution as well that, one, a 30-minute program that can compete with the best of the best up there, but be affordable and manageable for their clubs regionally. So we can get more people moving, right? At the end of the day, I need as many people moving. You know, I listened to a short study. It was yesterday morning. And it was from the chiropractic field, but you know, the research behind moving daily and the effect that has on brain morphology, or the size and shape of your brain. And if you're not moving every day, your brain will shrink. It's as simple as that. So this is something I say as well. It's bigger than fitness.
Yep.
It's bigger than fitness.
Yep.
This is health, right? This is mental health from connecting with communities, and I love building communities and putting people in touch with each other, to just sharing love of movement, to being the safest hour of your day or half hour of your day. There's so much more than fitness to this, and that's why I'm creating a program of such a high standard and making it as accessible as reasonably possible.
Yep.
To people.
Just on that, when you say it's accessible, I can't even say that word at the moment. When you say it's accessible, who's the license fee with? Clubs, instructors? How is that? The reason I ask that is a lot of the other guests I've had recently, when going down this series of program providers, a lot of them are looking at putting the license fee with the instructor, not with the club. What is Ride Rev? How have you done that?
A little column A and a little column B.
Yep.
And it's taken a while to shuffle the pieces so they fit, but predominantly the instructors we've got at the moment carry the license.
Okay.
As of this point in time, given that we're still growing, the license fee is zero for the rest of 2023, right? So if you take it on now, there's no license fee till 2024. And then you can carry the license. It's an annual fee, $120 plus GST for the whole year. So I think that's super reasonable. And then that gives you access to purchase the musical volumes. And I'm going to make them more cost affordable. Like, remember I said there was that poor culture thing going on?
Yep.
So everyone's time poor, and they're all telling me that they're money poor. Like, that's a barrier to actually jumping onto these programs as well. So I'm going to do the best I can to keep those volumes as affordable as possible. Obviously, they cost me a super ton to create, but you know, the more people in, it's almost like crowdfunding. The more people that are in, the easier it is for me to manage. But now, so yes, the instructor can hold the license, or we call them hit coaches. They can hold the license, and they can teach at any facility that has a stationary bike, be it a fitness club, a hall, a school, someone's shed with 4 bikes, you know.
Yep.
So we want everyone accessing this program, right? So that was a no-brainer for me, and that way it can. So one instructor can teach at 10 different clubs around, be it the coast or Toowoomba or friggin' Port Hedland, wherever you are.
Yep.
So there's that option. Of course, if you don't want to pay the hit coach license, then you'll have to teach at a facility that does carry the license.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Now, for clubs that want to pay the license, then we're going to give them the digital paraphernalia as well, posters, and I don't think they'll mind me saying, but Southport Sharks, they are one of our licensees as well. So we go down there when a new volume like the Black Volume or Hit Volume 13 came out. We go down there and we'll launch that for their club. So we'll actually go do the launch. And so they just get a bit more value add because they've got, invested interest, right? They're paying that monthly fee, which is $80 plus GST per month. So,
sorry to interrupt you. If an instructor is taking the license fee and doing that themselves, will they still get the digital stuff to use to promote their own the program within the club, or is that only just for the clubs that getting their?
They get digital. It's different. Like they get more social media sort of based digital content, whereas the clubs we've got. I mean, I've primarily done sort of posters, volume release posters. Just generic posters around the benefits of all that sort of stuff for clubs, and the intent is to have licensed clubs get access to those posters 6 months before licensed instructors would get access to that poster content, but the licensed instructors will have access to enough multimedia to do social media stuff, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
The reason I ask that is I think that's something that a lot of instructors are whinging these days, saying that my class has just been cut. Say, hang on, guys, get out there and promote your own classes. And if you're actually providing them with something to help them do that, I think that ticks that box to go, hey, you know what, you don't whinge that your club's not promoting it for you. If you've got the tools to promote it yourself, get out there and throw it on social media and actually, get attendance up in your own class.
Totally, and I'm going to say, like the thought process behind some of this as well is, if you're paying the license for the program that you're running at a club, then I want enough of that momentum so you can put the onus back on the club and say, hey, well, we're taking care of the license.
Yep.
Then my fee goes up.
Yep.
You have a right to ask for a higher pay rate because you're taking that responsibility on.
Yes.
And I think most people will nod at that, especially yoga instructors and Zumba instructors who already pay the license fee. They know they're entitled to a higher pay bracket. So just, that's part of the considerations I've made as well. It's like, I want people to walk and go, well, I'm taking the responsibility. This is my rate to teach that class for you.
Yeah. Now, earlier on, you touched on there's two halves. Of course, there's two halves. That just sounds really stupid to say. But there's the front 13, 14 minutes and the back 13, 14 minutes.
Yep.
And you've got those that you can swap and change around. If I'm in a mood, can I just do two front halves? Or is it got to be a front half and it got to be a back half?
No, it's totally designed so you could do two front halves if you wanted. So it's just a repeat. And I've designed it in a way such that what you'd call the warm-up would be, if taught with the intensity, would be a great working block if it was sort of in the 15th minute, you know what I mean? So, Now, but I've got what I call mixed conditioning A, so that would go in the front half always, but then you can put either a mixed conditioning A or a mixed conditioning B in the second half. And that way, a B would always have to be in the second half, but an A could be in a first or a second half. So,
makes sense.
Yeah.
Can't do two Bs, but you can do two A's.
Yes, you can
and
do
an
two
AB.
A's. Yeah.
Yep.
Totally.
Makes total sense to me. I'm sure those people listening just got all that as well. It's easy as ABC.
Easy as ABC. And I've got ideas around expanding that as well. Now, I don't want someone out there doing 3 14-minute repeats, right? That would be, I just want to do a 45-minute class. Well, you
Go
could
and do a 45-minute class then.
you could do it. And I know it's been done. I wouldn't recommend it, but I wouldn't call it high intensity training for 45 minutes.
No, true. True. You can't keep that threshold, as you said earlier. Yeah. You wouldn't be able to do it.
Just wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing about high intensity training, I'm going to jump into this because I remember you mentioning it to, I think it was Karen from Spinning.
Yep.
the standing and sitting thing. She wasn't big on it. And I get that, right? Now I can understand it from both points of view. She wasn't big on like as a cyclist, if you're teaching from a pure cycling, 100%, right? Like you want to create an efficient cycle technique, generate as much power as you can while minimizing movement everywhere else, which is great for cycling. But this is high intensity training.
Yep.
And in fact, the less efficient you are, the more intense you're likely to make it.
Yep. It totally makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So do we stand in the first 30 seconds? Yeah, you bet your ass we do.
Yep.
Are we going to do it in a safe and effective way? Yeah, you bet your ass we're going to do it. But it's almost like the name of the game is to make it less efficient, to drive the intensity so hard and create a metabolic response in the body that you leave fitter afterwards because of it, right? And then that's going to create more redundancy, because I don't know if you've ever watched cycling. It's not a straight line. Yep. And sometimes you have to get up and navigate or fall off your bike and get up and go again, and you'll be less efficient than you were when you were practicing.
Yep.
So there's a time and a place for sitting and standing. Yes. I just thought I was like, you know what, but there's a reason. There's a reason why we stand and sit and shift up and down and away from the center of gravity and all that sort of stuff. And it's to create that oxygen jet in the muscles, to drive the intensity and get that training fatigue that we need to stimulate adaptive change.
I like the explanation, and it goes to show that each program is different. Each program is designed by different people to get a different result for what they are passionate in. And I think what you've just explained to us then is what Ride Revolution is.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's big bang and beats and lots of sarcasm.
Yep.
But the mix and match is the game changer. I think that's what the instructors that we've got around the country doing it at the moment, they just love that mix and match. I mean, they've already picking up their favorite ones. Yep. And when I said the music is unfamiliar, right? So yes, there's not going to be music you hear on the radio, but there's nothing like seeing your instructors sing the bloody music that you've created.
Yep.
Or the participants and clubs sing the music that you've created. Now, talk about feeling like a rock star. When I was going to be tortured fate in year 10, having people sing my music back to me, well, now I get to experience that. It's so cool. I was like, wow, they're singing my music. It's a mind blow. It's a mind blow to see it. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So yeah, that's the game changer.
Yep.
Hopefully that the licensing structure is flexible enough for people to reach out and be like, yeah, let's get amongst it.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think anything that's different to what the norm, and I think this day and age especially, now in the times we are at, everyone's counting every single dollar they're spending everywhere. So, if there's something that's out there that's a bit cheaper they can still see value in, I think clubs are jumping at it straight away. So,
well, that's right. And I learned a lot from, his name escapes me. Who's the Tribe One guy that you... He's one of the first...
Shift. Will Brereton.
Shift.
Yep. Shift Fitness.
Will Brereton, that's it. Yeah. And he made a real great point around that accessibility as well. Like, obviously, they went to a subscription-based method and you could access everything. I was like, maybe we'll do that one day. That's a big shift from where we've set it up.
Yep.
But yeah, we do want to break down that barrier so people can access it. We were currently slated at $399 for the initial training.
Yep.
But I tell you what, if I was like, you know what, if we get more people doing it at $199, I'll do it at $199. How's that for breaking a barrier? And then it just becomes time and effort,
Is it on that though? Because there's been a lot of the podcast guests that I've had on. It's ranged from anywhere from 700 down to 199. Is it devaluing yourself when you put it too low? The time and energy and effort you've got to put into what you're doing, the time and energy and effort you put into going through doing your training and assessing cert for, getting each release that you're putting all together. Yeah, okay, you're getting paid from instructors each release, But that initial 2-day, I mean, it was 2-day training, you said?
2-day training, yeah.
Initial 2-day training that you're going through, there's time and effort involved in that you need to be paid for, that an instructor needs to see value in. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just my head. If I saw a training at $199, am I going to get value, or is it too cheap?
They'll get value for it, man. Come do this module, they'll be like, oh, dang.
But that's my point, though. I wonder whether...
Am I devaluing it? Look,
Yeah.
I probably won't have it at $199 forever, but like if that's... I mean, because this is what the barrier seems to be at the moment, and be it true or not, at least let's remove that barrier. I see the same in practice. If I remove the barrier, especially if I've got great existing patients and they've got family, friends who just, they want to know more about chiropractic, then I'm just like, hey, we've got a family and friends rate. Let's remove that financial barrier, because that's they have this fear around committing too much money to something that they might not like. But I'm like, I can guarantee you, as soon as they come in and they feel safe and they feel nurtured and they feel listened to, they're going to impart with a lot more money. That was the barrier. So remove that initial barrier, get them in the practice, get them having an amazing experience. And then that's my same approach to this. Once people have the training module, they'll be like, that was worth more than $199. But you know what? That saved my ass. Now I can buy a few extra volumes. I'm good to go. I've got 10 different combinations of exercises I can go out there and teach. I'm good for the next 20 weeks.
Okay.
You know? Return on investment.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Now, look, the reason I asked the question is because I've still seen so much from up to the 649s or 679s down to the 129.
Yeah.
And that was just the question of, I know that everyone's tight with, well, as you said earlier on, they're poor. But yeah, it's interesting.
We'll see how it goes, Tony. Anyway, there's the offer. There's the offer.
This is the Group X podcast.
Adam, what advantages are there for an instructor to come on board and teach Ride Revolution?
Well, I mean, obviously I've got 20 years experience, and I'm kind of pouring that into the 2-day module. And for those that do have quite a strong pre-choreographed background, they'll understand that. They'll understand that. I suppose I'm be reaching out to those who of the freestyle instructors out there that they're probably tired. They're exhausted. They've been searching through music. They want to do high intensity. They've listened to every drum and bass track on the friggin' planet, and they just need a break, right? So my suggestion would be to use this in a freestyle slot. Take the pressure off yourself. I'm not saying teach it how you want to teach it. I mean, use it the way it's designed to maintain the integrity of the program and the promise of the training. But yeah, I say that would be my market probably in the short term, is to get those tired instructors that are tired of creating their own content. Like get a program that you can fall back onto. We've got a coach who's just about to certify in South Australia, who is a freestyle instructor, and she's a recent mum, and like the time has changed. The time availability has changed. She still loves getting on the bike and leading, but she just doesn't have the time to create anymore. Right. So let us take care of that creating side of things. The choreography notes, the workout plan is comprehensive. It's all done for you, and we just use it in those time slots, right, at gyms that are freestyle. And I know some locations will not be able to put it on the timetable as Ride Revolution, but just tell people when they come in, hey, this is a Ride Revolution class. It's 30 minutes high intensity training. We can mix and match the 2 40-minute halves. We're going to work through speed, power, and strength. We're going to test out the grey areas as well. But you can trust that the program has been tested. It's consistent. It's reproducible. Other instructors will be able to pick it up to cover if whatever, all that sort of
Yep.
stuff. So,
Yep. Yep.
So utilize that pre-choreographed stuff to give yourself a break is probably the take home for that group of instructors. The pre-choreographed coaches out there, they already know. They know the benefits of not having to do so much homework.
Yeah.
There's still homework involved, of course, but it just depends how amazing you want the experience to be for your members.
True. So on that, how can instructors find out more information?
The best way well, I guess the website is probably the easiest way to hit the frequently asked questions tab. It's probably the most underutilized page on our website, but
On most websites, I'd say, mate.
we refer to the most often.
Yep.
So we're riderev.com.au.
Yep.
So that's the website. If you want to see us in action, we're putting up a recorded HIT session nearly every week on Facebook. So there's a catalog. I don't know how many is there. There must be 150 different workouts there. So that's The Ride Revolution on Facebook, and then we're on Instagram as well. Handle, if that's what you call it, is at @the_ride_revolution.
Yep.
They're the big ones. Otherwise, you can hit me up on the emails at hello@riderev.com.au, and happy to field any questions and come up with solutions for you and your community, especially the regional crew. We want to get you involved best we can. So, if we can't get to you, I mean, we've got where's Aurelie training? She's in Dubai, so we're working with her, getting her trained up. She'll be certified probably by the end of the week.
Brilliant.
So we'll have instructors in Dubai and Canada coming up as well. So we've found solutions to getting international instructors trained up as well.
Awesome. But guys, check out the show notes because I'll have stuff listed there as well on most of those links that Adam has just talked to us about. Mate, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting to me, not once, but twice. Mate, it's great you're the only guest that I've had on here twice. So actually, no, sorry, I lied. Maria Teresa Stone, she beat you just by a fraction. I had her on for Zumba and then on just recently for my group move. But mate, you're number two. Number two, to come on for number two, I will say thank you very, very much for sharing your expertise with us. And mate, anything I can do to help get Rider Rev out there, please yell out. I'm happy to help.
Mate, I will do, and we'll stay in touch always, TZ. Thanks for all the work you're doing and spreading the love for everything else out there in the group exercise space.
Oh, shucks, man.
Love you, buddy.